Hello folks and welcome back to the real show. I haven't made an Inside My Head for ages. And so I have been looking for a game now for half an hour. I'm sitting here getting stuff done actually for the channel. I was waiting for somebody to pop up, and then I had Sezer76 or Sezer or Sezer if you like, The Usual Suspects, which is one of the best movies in the history of movie making. Cheers, by the way. So yeah, this guy, sorry, excuse that, it was not a pun. This guy popped up. So yeah, let's see what's happening here. I was very desperate to make a quick move before I set up the recording, so I accidentally grabbed the D pawn, and so we are looking at the Bogo Indian, about which Chess Explained wrote a very good book, and Chess Explained is a dude I'm going to play against. Hopefully shortly. He said to me that he would be available soon, so we will have a bit of a match that I'm going to upload, hopefully to further popularize the channel. I would have preferred him to play castles. I prefer to play against that line more so than against this. Okay, so now he's gonna take me, bishop takes back, and bishop here, or I can take with the queen, thus allowing myself to develop the bishop to the queen, to the long diagonal. Both of them are legitimate variations, and I'm not 100% sure which one I'm going to go with, but I don't know. I will see when it happens. But the general idea by black is to create a very firm control over the e4 square, sometimes even jumping in and making it even better by playing pawn f5. Going home in this particular case doesn't make too much sense, because after e4, d5 is forced anyway, more or less, and then the b6 move becomes a little bit unnecessary. So it's a better way to play this whole setup would have been for black, like this d6 move is already a bit shaky, is to play castles here. After a3, drop back to e7, and then combat e4 with the immediate d5. Now black surrendered the bishop, the center, totally unnecessarily, and the only drawback of my position is that my knight is here instead of the ideal c3. If it were for the fact that the knight was here, I would have a humongous advantage. But even in this case, I'm very happy with my position, as black finds it very difficult to bite into my center. Eventually he's going to play c5, and after d5 he's going to have a very cramped position. So I'm just developing my pieces. I could do some cutie stuff like playing h3 here, threatening with e5, but I find it too cheap, and you know that this is not my kind of thing to do. So I'm just playing proper chess moves for the time being and wait for him to see how he wants to disentangle himself from this mess. Excuse me. Now I may actually be threatening with e5. There's one motive that I have to be conscious of, and that is that after d, sorry, come on dude, after d, my bishop will be a little bit exposed on that open d file. So for example, if he castled here after e5 d, he plays knight g4, and he's threatening to take here, and after knight takes, rook takes, he has got queen takes down here onto my bishop. So he decided, no, we're not going to leave. He decided to play in the center, but now it comes at a high cost, because now this bishop is surrendered entirely into passivity, and although he can jump in with the tempo, I will eventually kick that knight out by playing b3, rook b1, and b4. And c6 likewise is not really a great move, because it doesn't really achieve much. In fact, now me playing b4 is going to take away even the c5 square from black. It's a very common misconception in this position that black needs to play on the queen side. It's not the case. The pawn structure always defines where you are supposed to play. In this case, black's pawn structure is pointing very clearly this way, and therefore he should be playing here. My pawn structure is pointing this way, and therefore I'm supposed to play on the queen side. I could play here rook b1 or bishop b2. The reason why I'm reluctant to play bishop b2, even though technically it develops my last piece, is that I would really love to have this bishop here. And I'm willing to waste a couple of moves on getting here, because here on b2 I'm biting into granite just like he does here, and I don't want to commit the same mistakes. So I'm even willing to regroup the knight via either b3 and then put the bishop out, or even f1, bishop e3, and then go from there. But I definitely need to regroup this. Once again, ideally this knight would be best here, but that's wishful thinking, and we are not going down that path. The position, by the way, despite of its Bogo Indian start, reminds us most heavily to a Ruy Lopez or a Spanish structure, with the exception that black didn't manage to play a6 b5, but instead he played b6 a5. Now both can be weak or strong, but in this case it's hard to see how black would benefit from the fact that he opened up the a file onto me, because there is no penetration square down here. I would also like to point out that I disagreed with this CD because it granted my knight a beautiful square. So he should have left it hanging on. Remember my golden principle that all my students break all the time: don't release tension unless you have something to gain from it. He gained bugger all, absolutely nothing by taking here. There is no advantage in this position for black that wouldn't have been here already. On the other hand, he just gave my knight a free beautiful square. And remember, that was my main concern, to move this knight away so that my bishop can develop and then get somehow the knight back on track. Now I can put this knight on the most glorious square on the board, targeting already a weakness, and I'm ready to come out here too. Please note that b5 is not good, because then my knight continues its journey deeper into enemy territory, and then I'm hassling the bishop and eyeing this very weak c6 square. Now I have to be a little bit mindful about tactics on these two squares. So for example, if I were to play bishop e3 next move, which I'm very tempted to do, he might be able to pull off the tactics like bishop takes, pawn takes, and then pawn up, forking my bishop and my knight. It may or may not work. I will have a look at it when we get there, because now I'm trying to figure out what his best move is, or what I would do if I were him. To me, rook e8 would make some... Oopsies, what was that? Rook e8 would make some sense, or something like g6, knight h5, aiming to play f5, because still, black is meant to be playing on the king side, not on the queen side. And because of he has played so many unnecessary moves, that one followed by that one on the queen side, my play is far easier now. Okay, so bishop here obviously wants to... we have a phone call and we don't care. Viewers are more important. He obviously wants to swap off this bishop for this knight, which is understandable. Now the biggest mistake I could make here is to push the pawn up. That would be a horrendous positional mistake, because that would surrender the c5 square for his knight forever. So I'm not even looking at that. The downside of this bishop move is that now I could reclaim the a file, but I would only want to do that once my bishop is developed. And that train of thoughts takes me to want to play bishop e3, but I can't do that because after bishop takes e4 is hanging. So we are back to square one. What the heck to do? My next idea, and I think we'll settle on this one, is queen e2. I quite like this move because it develops the queen onto a square where it stands safe. It covers the penetration square on a2. And also it supports my idea of connecting the rooks. And it actually prepares for a... and depends my pawn here too. And it prepares for a nice tactics, which is knight takes e5. The idea is that now I built up double firepower onto the a6 bishop. And so after knight takes e5, the elastic bend is the name of this tactical trick works. If the bishop takes me, I take back with the knight. And I got away with daylight robbery, took a free pawn. If he takes on e5, I just take the bishop on a6. And if he were to take me here, I would take, and then my plan will be to put this bishop on to c6, being very annoying with it. Please note that whilst this knight is really good, structurally speaking, this is his good bishop and this is his bad bishop. because his pawns are blocked on the color of this bishop. Thereby, this is his bad one, this is his good one, where my pawns are blocked, so he has the potential to attack them. This formation of the pawns indicated that this bishop on b7 was very useless, biting into granite, but in the long run, it's still his good bishop, and this is still his bad bishop. And therefore, swapping it off, whilst in the short term it makes sense, in the long run it will have very severe consequences. But on the other hand, if his intention was not to take me, then it didn't make any sense to go there in the first place. So I sort of expected him to take. And we still struggle with this problem of the bishop, which I would still love to develop here, and I still can't do that. Potentially I will have to play a move like queen d3, so that I can develop the bishop to e3 without leaving the pawn on prey on e4. I expect queen c7, against which I'm either going to play set queen d3, or first bishop here, and then I will go from there. Okay, so that move tells me, rook a7, that he wants to use the a file. And that sort of makes me want to go bishop b5, so that queen a8 can be met by bishop c6 very annoyingly. Yeah, I'm going to do that. The fact that I left the a2 square is irrelevant, because after queen c8, queen a8, I'm going to hit the queen, so he doesn't have a chance to penetrate. And once I'm in there, I can then go to either c2 or d3, as per discussed before, with my queen to cover the e4 pawn and get ready to play bishop e3. And then the final part of the maneuver is going to be to regroup the other knight to c4 and hunt down this weakness. Really, it is turning out to be a rather fine positional game. Mind you, I'm getting a lot of aid and help from my opponent, but you know, that's hardly my concern. I can't really decide between these two. I'm sort of tempted to play to c2 because I want to keep this guy controlled here, but I also don't want to jump into this, even though after bishop c6 I can't possibly see how he could exploit the pin. Cheers, by the way. Yeah, let me think. Or should I play knight e2 first and knight c4? Which then would allow me to complete the pawn chain with f3 and then bishop e3. Smart. Let's do that. Now, I did allow rook a2, but I still don't care. I don't know what I would do against it, but I didn't consider it to be dangerous enough to spend too much time with such move, because, yeah, this was a brilliant regroup. I really, really wanted to do it, and I could do it without any concessions whatsoever. And this whole setup doesn't make any sense because he can't build on it. If he were to now come here, bishop c6. If he comes here, bishop c6. So he can't really go any further in than that. And once again, I would like to emphasize it because it's very important, and many people, even on this level, can't understand it. The dude constantly is playing on the queen side. He has got no business whatsoever on that part of the board. I'm a bit reluctant to go in because I don't like the look of b5, but then I realized that I'm talking nonsense because I knew that would happen, because then I would just go in. So this is basically a bit of a desperation sack, and at this point all I need to do is just to swap off all the pieces, and my exchange advantage is going to be winning the game for me. Please note that this is a super important move in that I would like to eliminate defenders of the d5 square. The d5 square is chronically weak, and I eventually now would like to bounce back there. Now I'm a bit tempted to take. And when I say I'm a bit tempted, I mean I can't wait to take that thing. The only question is that, do I want to come here? But I don't want to allow them to play g5 and then force my bishop to a silly square. The whole concept was to swap off as much as I can, so let's do that. Okay, now I can't... Oh, I actually can play knight e3, because after knight e4 I have got knight e5 hanging the knight and the bishop. Good. Good chess, boys. Good chess. So far, so good. This is how tactics always interlink with positional chess. The whole game so far has been purely positional. But as you could see, for example, when I played Queen E2 threatening with that elastic band, you can always and you should always sneak in and reckon with tactics for both sides. So don't forget that your opponent is allowed to use tactics just as well as you are. So for example, now the positional plan in this position was to get a knight in here. But the means to get there, it's a positional plan, is tactical. I can play knight e3 because knight e4 loses to knight d5, hitting two pieces at once. Not saying that tactics would have disabled me to execute this plan. And I also have now queen b5 coming in with a tempo. And then I can once again pressure the pawn, play for rook c1, you name it. I wouldn't be surprised if the game ended in a resignation rather soon. On occasions I can also jump into f5, but that's not a major theme in this business. I totally miss king f8, I have to admit that. Now knight c6 still wins the house for me, and I'm going to actually go for that. But for accuracy's sake, I need to mention that queen f3 is also winning. Should I go for that? I mean, knight c6 is a fun line, and then I take back, and then I cement in the knight, and I just hunt down the pawns. That looks kind of cute. But I reckon queen f3 is the fastest and safest win. And so we go for that. Because now if he was to play e4, I can take this for free. Because not only my queen is hanging, but his too, and now it's not a check. So maybe resign now. Yep. Alright, well, that was basically a good positional effort crowned with a tactics in the end. And the dude did not want a rematch. So I will call it off here. I don't think it's necessary to go through the game again, because I think that unlike in most cases, I managed to describe it well enough. So we'll call it a day here, guys. And I will be back with more as per usual. Thanks for watching. Bye.